My name is Christine Collins. On March 10th, my 9-year-old son, Walter Collins, disappeared. And a 5-month investigation led to a boy being brought to Los Angeles from DeKalb, Illinois. The LAPD told me and all of you that this boy was my son. He was not my son.
It's episode 58.
Yeah. What's this one about?
This one is actually, we're doing a true crime twofer.
Yeah.
Actually, we decided to do this. Well, I decided to do this.
Yeah.
Frankly.
You've been telling me about these cases, but I don't really know anything about them.
We decided to do this because, one, true crime is like probably my favorite set of topics that we do on this show.
Yeah.
And since this show is going up on my birthday, the 26th, then I thought I would celebrate in that way. And also because my new true crime book, The Faceless Villain, is officially finished.
Done.
And will soon be available for sale. At least the print and the ebook, and then the audiobook will probably be up a week or two later.
Right.
So I wanted to do another true crime show. Now, both of these cases were requests from two different people.
They're not in the new book, are they?
No, because these were actually solved. They know who did these. Because my book is all unsolved murders. And but these ones were solved. They know who did them. So, but they have like a lot of really creepy details. And like I said, both of these were requests by two separate people. The first one is going to be the Corpsewood Manor Murders from Georgia.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. And the second one is the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders.
Okay.
From California. And that was from the 1920s.
All right.
So we're going to be talking about both of those. And before we do that, let's do our regular shout outs, our regular stuff at the beginning of the show. Like I said, my new book, The Faceless Villain, will be out very, very soon. I just finished doing the print layout and everything like that. So all I have to do now, I think I just have to do like a blurb for the back cover and just get it all uploaded.
Yeah, it's a big book too. It's the size of The Unseen Hand.
Yeah, it's about the same. I think it's only like 40 pages less or something like that. But yeah, it should be good. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. It's all unsolved murders from 1900 to 1959. It's volume 1. There's eventually going to be 3 volumes.
I'm hoping that it's going to be a popular book. I think the unsolved murders. I think there's a big following for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know a lot of other people are too, because, when I was doing the research for the book and everything, it does seem like there's a lot of information about a lot of these because a lot of people are really interested in these cases. And so, I picked ones that were famous, but I tried to find some ones that were not so famous too.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. Is unsolved murders more popular than paranormal?
I would kind of think, it's like a broader audience.
We'll see.
think.
We'll see how it goes.
But, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so that should be out really soon. If you look out for that in a week or two, it should be up. Also, we just put up a new movie review, right? We did Flash Gordon.
Yeah, we did Flash Gordon.
Yeah, so that's up if you didn't see it. And we'll put another one up a couple days from now.
Oh, yeah. Are we going to do Conan?
Yeah, we can do Conan.
Okay.
We're going to do Conan.
I got some special planned for Conan.
He's been talking about this. He just got the Blu-ray, and he's been talking about his.
I've been studying
his
Conan.
Theories behind the movie, for a couple of days.
There's a lot more there than I remembered when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now coming out of the army and knowing, German philosophy and some of the Eastern philosophies, like Friedrich Nietzsche and Arthur Schopenhauer and mythicism. That's helping me understand what Conan was actually
It's a
about.
much deeper movie than I remembered.
Yeah, the director's awesome, Millis. He loves soldiers and warrior culture, and he's a warrior worshiper. A big part of this book is hero worship, or movie is hero worship.
Yeah.
But I feel like I haven't woke up yet.
You haven't woke up yet. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
I don't know what it is. My mind's rusty.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that'll be the next one will be Conan the Barbarian, and that should be up a few days from now, probably Friday or Saturday.
Right.
And also, don't forget about our Patreon page. Thank you to our newest patron, Matt. Thank you very much for your support.
Yeah.
And also, I'm thinking about doing a Google Hangout on September 30th, which is this coming Saturday, for our $10 and up patrons. So if any of you guys are the $10 and up patrons and you have any suggestions about like what time you would prefer, even if you want to do it on Sunday, that's fine too. I don't really care. Let me know. I'll send out some invitations probably later in the week.
Yeah.
For people who want to do it and stuff. Like we tried to do one last month and like no one showed up, and then like one person showed up, but it was already
too late. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 30 or 40 minutes in, and we were already kind of like, crap. What are we doing?
We were getting ready to leave, actually.
Yeah.
We were getting ready to leave the house.
Yeah.
So, we don't have that many patrons yet. You know, I'm sure our patron activity will get a little more, intense once we have more. I mean, how many do we have? We maybe
13, 14, something 14? Like that.
Yeah.
I think that's how many.
We're not even at $100 yet.
Yeah. Although we're close.
We're close. We're close at 100. Yeah, we're close.
We can do it.
Yeah, and most of that weight's being carried by 4 people. Oh.
But yeah, so if any of you guys want to do a Google Hangout if you're a $10 and up patron, then I'm thinking about Saturday, so like Saturday afternoon or something like that. Yeah. But, we'll see how that goes. Okay, now also, Halloween is coming up next month, our favorite holiday of the year. Now, I think it was John R., who is one of our YouTube listeners. Yeah. And I had mentioned, and he always leaves us like such awesome comments. Like he just writes these big long comments, and that's so awesome. He
comes up with good ideas.
Yeah, and he's come up with like a lot of good ideas for the show. Yeah. And I was trying to think, I think I mentioned on one show a while back that I was like, oh, I wanted to do something special for the Halloween show because the show was going to go up, because I think Halloween's on a Tuesday this year. So the show's actually going to go up on Halloween, like the day of Halloween. And I was like, so we should do a Halloween special. What should I do? Like, what should we do? And I couldn't think of anything. And I think it was John R. that came up and he's like, hey, why don't you do like reader ghost stories? Like, have people contribute. And I'm like, man, that's an awesome idea.
Okay.
So if you guys have like a good true ghost story, it has to be true, that happened to you or happened to someone in your family or something like that, then I want you guys to contribute them, and I can read the best ones on the show.
Where do they contact you?
Well, you can either contact me on YouTube and I'll give you my email, or I can just give the email right now. I'll put the email in the link to the description on YouTube too, and I'll put it in the link to the description on the audio thing. You can actually send them to my email, which is gravecake@gmail.com. And so if you want to write out a true ghost story that happened to you, and we'll pick the best one. So like if we have a lot and we can't fit them all on there, but we'll pick the best ones and we'll put them on there. I just wanted to get like out ahead of time. So it's any kind of ghost story, any kind of paranormal story, anything that's kind of maybe weird or creepy. Right. You can send it. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ghost story. It just has to be like a creepy story, but it has to have happened to you or someone, like it has to be a true story. Can it be a UFO story? Yeah, if it's creepy. Okay. If it's creepy. Okay. That's the only criteria, that it's creepy and it has to be true. Like it has to be like a personal experience. All right. And I wanted to, give you guys like a month out so, we could get ones and see what the best ones are. If it's real good, we might have you on as a guest. Yeah. That's a good idea too. Yeah. But yeah, we wanted to do that for our Halloween special and, show appreciation for our listeners. Yeah. So, thanks John R. for that idea, because that was an awesome idea. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully we'll get some good stories. Yeah, we got a lot of good movies that are going to come up for review too. I'm sitting here looking at the list of them. I go, man, I'm going to get every one of these on Blu-ray. Yeah. How many? That's going to cost $1 million. Yeah. No, Blu-ray's actually how many is that? That's probably like, about 50, huh? That's like 50 or 60 movies. Right. Yeah. Good ones on there. Omega Man. Oh my God. The Evil. Bay of Blood. Yeah. I definitely want to do some Mario Bava. I want to do some Dario Argento. I want to do some David Lynch, because he's Legacy. My favorite. All pretty kind of shit. Bubba Hotep. Yeah. I definitely want to do Bubba Hotep. One of my favorite movies. Just to name a few. Yeah. So those will all be upcoming. Like I said, they'll take a while to get to them all, but we have a big, huge list. Okay. So anyway, speaking of creepy, let's get to our true crime topics. Yeah, tell us about this. Okay, now someone, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it was, but someone suggested, I think it was on the Facebook page, that we do something about Corpsewood Manor. Now, I had heard of Corpsewood Manor in the paranormal sense, because I know that like a lot of paranormal groups there, because it's supposed to be haunted and blah-de-blah, but I didn't really know the details of what actually happened there. Right. Okay, so here is what happened. In the 1970s, about 1977, there's a guy named Dr. Charles Scudder, and he was a professor of psychopharmacology at Loyola in Chicago. Now, he was married, he had 4 kids and stuff like that, but I believe his wife died, and he had always had, a male companion. He had been living as in their house as a handyman or whatever. Now, when Dr. Scudder turned 50, he decided, he's like, well, I'm sick of teaching, I'm sick of living in Chicago, I'm sick of the rat race and everything like that. So him and his partner, whose name was Joey Odom, decided, let's go out in the wilderness and we'll live off the grid. We're gonna build a house out there and we'll be totally self-sufficient. It'll be awesome. We don't want to be in the city anymore and stuff like that. Basically, they did all this research and stuff like that, and they found 40 acres out in this really, really remote part of Georgia by the Appalachians. And it was super cheap. So they go out there, they buy 40 acres, and then they live in a trailer on the property, and they built, just the 2 of them, built this huge brick house. And they called it Corpsewood Manor.
Damn.
They named it that.
Are there any photographs of this house?
Yeah.
All right. What's it look like?
It's still there, but it's, it's a ruin now,
right.
obviously. And some of it's gone because I think there was a fire. But all the brick part is still there. It's pretty much just like a really big, it's like 2 or 3 stories. And it's just this really big brick structure with these arches. And it has this huge, like, winged gargoyle, like on the front of it. Because these 2 guys.
Did it look cool?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's cool looking. I'm sure it looks better, like, back in the day. Because
right.
now it's kind of, all overgrown and everything. But. So they built this house, just the 2 of them, out in the middle of nowhere. And, it didn't have, they had no electricity, they had but they had their own well. They grew all their own food. They had their own vineyard. They made their own wine. And all this other stuff.
So it's 2 gay guys living out off the grid, building their own mansion out of bricks. Okay. What year was this again?
This was, they moved there I think the house was done in this 1977.
Okay.
1978.
So it's modern era. All right.
So they move out there. Now, there's kind of a lot of controversy about the case because now some people from the area said, well, there were rumors that they were Satanists, that they had like orgies out there and stuff like that. I don't really think I'd buy that because
they're living way out there off the grid and they're going to get enough people to come way out there to their house to have an orgy.
Right.
No.
And see, here's the thing. I feel like one, this is rural Georgia. These are 2 open gay guys.
They're gonna make up
in
stories.
the late 70s, early 80s.
They're going to make up stories.
Yeah, people are going to make up stories about them because they're eccentric.
Right.
And now I don't really think they were Satanists. I mean, people that knew Charles Scudder, he had joined the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey's Church of Satan earlier because he was curious about it. But he wasn't like a...
Yeah, well, we've already done a show on that. We know what that was.
Right, he was just an atheist.
Basically, what you're talking about is 2 gay goth dudes, prototype goth dudes in the 70s.
And if you look, there are pictures of the inside of their house. They had they had like this fireplace. I think it was a fireplace that had like a devil face on it and stuff like that. I'm like, these guys seemed rad. Yeah. I wanted to hang out with them.
Probably pretty entertaining.
Yeah, they were probably fun.
Yeah.
Now, some people that actually visited them or who lived in the area at the time were like, no, they were super friendly. Yeah. They made their own wine. They invited people over to their house to have their wine and have parties and stuff. Right. And Dr. Scudder since he was into pharmacology, he had some LSD that was apparently pretty good. So, you could go and party with them with wine and stuff like that. Now, one thing they didn't do, they had the main house, and then they also had like a guest house that they called the Chicken Coop. Which is weird because I didn't even know we were going to do the Chicken Coop Murders on the same show as this. So I was like, well, that's a weird tie-in. Okay. No relation, but I'm just saying. So they had this guest house. It was 3 stories and it was called the Chicken Coop. And that's where they had all their parties and all their guests over and stuff like that. Because apparently Dr. Scudder didn't want people in the main part of the house. Which that was like his private abode. Yeah, that was like his private abode. So he didn't so when they had guests over, they entertained them in this big 3-story guest house. And they had a room on top that was called the Pink Room. And
so it's basically they owned their own club.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right, okay.
And, like I said, they had people over.
That's kind of a cool idea.
I know.
Yeah, millionaires do that anyway.
Well, they weren't millionaires, see, and that was where some of the problem happened because...
Right. Yeah, but they were trying to live like millionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool idea, though.
It is, yeah. And like I said, and it sucks, like what happens.
It's like those guys that go out in the woods and then just build their own castle out of rocks that they're finding. Do you see that kind of crap? Yeah, they're living out of it.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Right.
I'm like, that's hardcore that he decided, I just don't even want to live in the city. I'm just going to go, we're going to build our own house. Right. They grew their own food. They didn't even need money. They didn't have electricity. Right. They had
lived in a medieval fashion.
Yeah.
Kind of cool idea. Yeah. Cool fantasy. Probably not as fun to actually do as
but apparently they had a good time doing it. I mean,
living without electricity would be pretty rough.
It was just two of them, and they had two big dogs that they loved. You know, they just kind of lived out there and whatever. Yeah. Okay, now, because they had 40 acres, it was very common for various locals to come and ask them to hunt on their property. Right. And so they would allow that, obviously. Sure. And so a lot of people knew who they were and stuff like that. Okay, now, one of the guys who wanted to hunt on their property was this dirtbag named Avery Brock, who, he was only 17, I believe, at the time.
And trouble's coming.
Yeah, that's, you know how this is going to go. Yeah. And he was one of the people that asked to hunt on their land, and he had hunted on their land, hunted rabbits and various things. Okay, well, Avery Brock, being not terribly bright, there are rumors that he tried to get in on like a threesome with the two guys, and either they let him and it was fine, or they were like, no, because you're young. You know what I mean? There's nobody knows what happened there.
Or it might have been the other way around. The two guys invited him into a threesome and he said no.
See, I don't really think so, because he went to their house like all the time.
All right, so he was friends with them.
And hung out. Yeah. Right. Well, you know.
Oh, yeah, you know the deal.
Yeah, so he had been there many times. He had been on their land many times. Now, because of the way they lived, he had the mistaken perception that they had money falling out of their asshole, pretty much. Right, yeah. Which was not true. I mean, Dr. Scudder, he had been a professor. His partner was, just kind of like a handyman type of guy. Right. I mean, Dr. Scudder had basically sold everything he owned
to build this
palace out here. The only money they had was he had a little bit from a trust fund from his dad, which was only, now I've heard that it was only like $100 a month.
Oh, damn. That's
which back in, which even in 1982 was only like $250 nowadays. Right. So, it went further back then, but not that much further. So basically they had sunk all their money into this. Now he did have some kind of valuable antiques and stuff that he had bought over the years. But, they weren't like wallowing in money or anything like that. But, however, Avery Brock thought they were. So he tells his other scumbag buddy, Tony West, who was like his roommate, they lived down in this trailer or whatever. He's like, hey, there are these two, quote unquote, queer devil worshippers that live out in the woods, and I go and hang out at their house sometimes and drink their wine and stuff, and they have all this fucking money, and we should go rob them. Right. Right. So this is what happens. It's December of 1982, and Avery and Tony are at their friend's house. So they have these two friends named Joey Wells and Joey Wells' girlfriend, Teresa Hudgens. And they said, hey, we're going to go out to this Corpsewood Manor place in the woods. These two gay guys live out there, and they make their own wine, and they're awesome, and you go party out there. So they were like, okay, fine. So they go out into the woods, and they go into the Pink House, the chicken coop. Now, there's a party going on there for several hours. They're all drinking wine. They're having a good time. Now, the teenagers, they're on. Now, I don't think Scudder and Odom were doing any drugs particularly, but the teenagers were on this drug that they called Toodaloo.
Never heard of it.
Which they made it. It was alcohol, glue, and paint thinner.
Oh, God.
And they huffed it.
All right, yeah.
So you can tell how fucking, what I mean, these type of dudes. So they were doing that. And they were hanging out with the guys for several hours, having a party, whatever. And then Avery's like, okay, well, I'm going to go out to the car and mix up some more of our drugs. Right. And I'll be back in a minute. So when he comes back from the car, he's got his hunting rifle. Mm-hmm. Now, at first, Charles Scudder, Avery has been over at their house like all the time. Mm-hmm. They're like, friends or whatever. So he just thought it was kind of funny. And he was kind of drunk too. And he was just go bang, bang. You know what I mean? Why you have your gun with you and stuff like that. Yeah, well, so basically Avery just gives Tony West the gun. Mm-hmm. Then he pulls a fucking knife out of his boot. Yeah. And puts the knife to Dr. Scudder's neck and says, give me all the money. Right. Right? And Scudder's like, what? I don't have any money. Yeah, I don't have any money, whatever. Now, at this point, the other two kids who were there, Joey Wells and Teresa Hudgens, who apparently had not known that this was going to go down,
right.
They tried to get the fuck out of Dodge. They ran out of the house. Now the car wouldn't start. So they were like, fuck, now what do we do? So then they go back into the room. Now, apparently, Teresa tried to tell them, don't hurt anybody. You know what I mean? She was kind of trying to stop it, or so she said. And evidently that did not work out. Now, they told Joey Odom, they sent him out of the house, or they sent him downstairs. That's like it's weird because the accounts are kind of strange. I'm not sure where everyone was, like, during all this time.
Right.
So, but apparently Scudder and Odom were separated. Now, they went to Joey Odom, and basically he just got up from the couch or whatever, and they just shot him right in the face, like 4 or 5 times.
Man.
And then shot their 2 dogs that were just sleeping by the fireplace or whatever.
Damn.
Right? So then Brock leads Dr. Scudder, who was in the pink house, so he was separated from his boyfriend, and they lead him down into the room and show him that the guy's dead and the dogs are dead, and the guy's so like he
what the hell
he was just like horribly grief stricken and couldn't even say anything. And then basically Brock just puts the gun up to his face and just shoots him in the face. He just shot his fucking face off.
Yeah.
Now this is kind of weird. Evidently, Dr. Scudder's last words before he was shot in the face were, "I asked for this."
Damn.
Which, okay, first of all, the only people that were there were the killers and the 2 people that were with them.
Right.
So I'm not sure who it was that said that was what he said before he got shot. It kind of sounds to me like they made something up, like to make themselves feel better, or make them sound less guilty or something like that.
I don't know. Weird.
Because what ended up happening is that the 2 guys that did the killing, and I don't want to say because maybe not, they might have got away with the shit because their whole defense was that, well, these 2 guys were devil worshippers and they drugged us and there was like a big orgy and shit like that. And it was almost kind of like people in the town were kind of like, yeah, they kind of had it coming. You know what I mean?
They wanted to believe
there was that perception of that.
They wanted to believe that story.
Not everybody believed that, but a lot of people did. Now, some people argue that the only reason that the 2 guys got put in prison was because, basically after they killed the guys, they stole Scudder's Jeep, which was a black Jeep, and it had white pentacles on the doors. Right?
Yeah.
Like I said, these guys sounded awesome. I'm like, I would have so hung out with these guys, man. It makes me so sad. I'm like, they sounded rad. So, like, can you imagine the giant brass balls you'd have to have a
Back in
Jeep
77
to have driving around in rural Georgia with a Jeep with pentacles on the doors? Jesus Christ. So, like, the murderer is driving...
they actually sound like clowns, really.
Yeah, they sounded like funny dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, naming their house Corpsewood.
Yeah.
And the road that led up to it, they called it Dead Horse Road because evidently when they first went out there to look at the property, they found a dead horse on the property. So they named the road after that. It's not even a road, it's just like a dirt path. So Avery Brock is driving this fucking black Jeep with white pentacles on the doors. And in his tiny little mind, he thinks, oh, well, maybe this is kind of, a conspicuous vehicle.
Right.
So I should probably get another one. So he pulls over at a rest stop in Mississippi. And he wakes up the next morning, him and Tony West, because they were both together. And they find another guy sleeping in a car at this rest stop. So they hold the gun to him and lead him out into the woods. They were going to take his car. And then Tony West shoots that guy.
Damn.
He was like a Navy lieutenant or something like that. So if they hadn't killed that 3rd guy... Yeah.
They became serial killers at that point.
Pretty much,
I think you have to kill 3.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be sexual motive. That depends. Depends on how the FBI wants to classify it. But yeah, multiple murderers. Yeah. 3 killers.
Yeah. Kirby Phelps. Phelps was the name of the Navy lieutenant that they killed just to take his car.
Damn. Now it's funny how these dudes just want to do petty shit like steal a car, but they'll kill somebody over it.
Right. I'm like, that is so dumb. So dumb.
Big difference in the penalties.
Yeah.
And a big difference in, I'm gonna take this guy's $40. I can't let him live though. Just like, what
right.
the fuck are you talking about?
Well, here's the thing. It's like, you suck enough if you're going to go out to these people's house who have been nice to you and have given you free wine and have let you hang out at their house. It's bad enough that you want to rob them.
Right.
But why? I mean, even if you had just robbed them, why didn't you just rob them and leave them alone? They weren't bothering anybody.
Right. You'll eventually get caught.
Yeah.
You won't do that much time for those robberies.
That's
not compared to the murder.
Not compared to the murder.
Right.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Well, they were 17.
Right.
And 17-year-old dudes are really not the smartest. Not the sharpest knives in the drawer. I'm just saying. Right. So Scudder and Odom were actually not found for a couple of days. A friend of theirs came out to Corpsewood Manor, like he was going to tell them that a friend of theirs had died, ironically, and went out there to the house and found them dead. It actually didn't take very long. The weird thing is that Avery Brock and Tony West didn't actually get caught. They both turned themselves in, which, whatever.
They wanted to go home.
I guess so. I guess maybe they thought they'd get away with it. Because the way they kind of spun it, when Avery Brock went and confessed to the police, he said, quote, "All I can say is they were devils and I killed them. That's how I feel about it."
Trying to become a hero.
Yeah. And like I said, at his trial, his defense attorney, which I know that's the defense attorney's job, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to get their clients off or whatever. But that's kind of how they tried to play it, that these two guys were like sexual predators and they had put LSD in the wine and all this other stuff, which they tested the wine and there was no LSD in there. So whatever. But, they tried to make it seem like that these were like these degenerate, satanic, cult murdering.
They just used the
guys.
They just used the oddities of those two guys as a justification to rob them. That's all they did.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sad that because of the area and because of the time, like I said, this was 1982. This was Satanic Panic type, which we also did a show about.
Rural.
Yeah, so,
We've been there before. We grew up in places like that. We know that.
Yeah, I grew up in the South. I know all about that kind of shit. So, you know what I mean?
Even though, like I said, I love certain elements of the South. But, in those days, you had to be careful who it was you were talking to. The older generations that were running around in the early 80s were backwards.
Well, and the sad thing now and the shocking thing, I mean, I was kind of shocked, not that shocked, but a little bit shocked, that even nowadays, like when I was researching this show and I was reading different blogs and stuff like that about it, there are still some whack jobs out there who will comment on these things that those two guys, they kind of had it coming.
Yeah.
Because they were Satanists and they were gay and blah, blah, blah. So obviously they deserved getting shot in the face, which I don't even think...
If they really even were Satanists.
I don't think they were.
They might have just had that as a decorative motif.
That's what I mean. And like some other people have said, it wasn't they had some devil stuff. Like I think he had like a really pretty, like a mosaic of
in 81, so did all the young Iron Maiden fans.
Exactly.
So,
And see, the thing that bothers me is that, when I was growing up, that's kind of what my bedroom looked like.
Yeah,
I had skulls everywhere and posters and stuff like that. So, like, I deserve to be shot in the face, too? Awesome. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's, like, a really horrible, ignorant thing.
It's like having my stepdad run in there and pull down my KK Downing poster,
Right.
Fucking faggots, Judas Priest,
know. See, my grandpa was like that, too. Except I was into New Wave, so he was always, they're all gay.
Yeah.
Earrings.
Makeup. Being pretty motherfuckers.
Yeah. They're
just
jealous, yeah.
Yeah. Of course in jail.
Man, Duran got more pussy than anybody in the 80s.
Dudes all married supermodels.
They did, too. And it's like everybody's like teasing for being gay. They're like, yeah, we're totally gay. We're stealing your girlfriend.
Yeah, and the gayest looking one of them was the biggest player.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what's so awesome about Duran. I love Duran. We both love Duran. But yeah, I'm just kind of making the point that, like I said, this was Satanic Panic era. Yeah. So I almost kind of feel like if they hadn't killed that other guy... they might have I don't think they would have gotten away with it, but they might have got a lighter sentence. Now, as it happened, one of the assholes, Avery Brock, I think he got, now he attempted suicide in jail, because of course he did, but he didn't die, unfortunately. He got 3... Yeah,
he wanted to be a tough guy until they got him behind bars.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like you want to do that shit, but
you realized jail wasn't a fish tank. Jail was a shark tank. And he was nothing but a guppy.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't even, he failed at that. Now he got 3 consecutive life terms. Now the other one, Tony West, who was the one that had shot the Navy lieutenant, he actually got the death penalty at first, but then it was commuted to a life sentence later. So both of these scumbags are still in prison. So they're both still alive. They're both still in prison, I think in Augusta. So, sadly, Dr. Scudder was cremated, and he was actually sent back to Wisconsin, where he was originally from, and buried. His sister requested he was there. Now, Joey Odom, he was also cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Rosegarden of Corpsewood. Now, like I said, Corpsewood Manor, the ruins of it are still there.
It would have been cool if his ashes were scattered in the Rosegarden Funeral of Swords. Bauhaus fans know what I'm talking about.
And John Cale fans.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But, man, I should have put that at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I still can, I guess. But, so since such a horrible thing happened on this property, and it's kind of sad because I was kind of looking for some documentaries about Corpsewood Manor. The only one I found that was kind of worth a shit, well, that I thought was worth a shit, was called Corpsewood 1982. And this guy had uploaded, he said, oh, my mom made this back in the 80s, when the case was new. And she was from around that area. So I start watching it, and I discover that the woman that made this documentary had, let's call it, an agenda. And she very much was a proponent of the fact that these two guys had it coming because they were gay and they were Satanists and blah, blah, blah. So after about 20 or 30 minutes, I was just like, fuck this lady. And I turned it off.
Right.
The only other documentaries I could find about it were paranormal ones, like paranormal teams going out there. Because now, everyone says now, because this horrible thing happened there, you go out to Corpsewood and it's super creepy. And sometimes you can see or you can hear gunshots, which is probably just hunters far away, I'm just saying. Yeah. Or you can hear a harp playing because Dr. Scudder played the harp. He had a big gold harp in the house. And you can also hear glass breaking and things like that. And some people have also reported that they have seen like glowing dog eyes, which are supposedly the ghost of one of the couple's dogs. The dog was named Beelzebub. Which, like I said, these guys sounded so awesome. And it's like, these two guys totally would have been people we need to
get one of those little pet miniature goats, a little black goat, and we walk it around on a leash.
Oh my God.
That'd be cool.
That's one of the best ideas you've ever had.
Just call it Baphomet.
That is seriously one of the best ideas you've ever had.
Paint its hooves white.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're totally doing
Get a little
this
baby, a little miniature goat.
Yeah. Goats are awesome, you guys.
We'll go out for our walks. We're walking a goat. Yeah, if you've never had a goat, we've had some goats at some of the farms that I've worked at. Because actually, my family was in the horse business for a long time too, English equestrian horses. But in some of these barns have goats. Yeah. And goats are hilarious.
They're so awesome.
They're very smart, and they're a lot like dogs. Yeah. They'll follow you around. They do funny shit. Absolutely hilarious.
They are adorable animals. And they eat garbage.
They'll eat anything.
Which is nice. Yeah, they can kind of clean up your yard.
You gotta watch them. You turn around, they're eating the back of your pant leg. They're trying to chew your pants. They're just nuts.
Anyway, so that was the story of Corpsewood. And I guess we're at the halfway point now, so we will take a break right now. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders, which was another request by another listener. Okay. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Hey, 13 O'Clock fans! Love the show but don't have an hour to spare? Check out our new list channel, 13 O'Clock in Minutes. All the fun, creepy topics of the main podcast, but in easy-to-swallow, bite-sized pieces. Links in the description. More videos to come soon. Okay, and we're back. Now, if you guys saw, I don't know if you guys saw it, I saw it. It came out in 2008, and it was a movie called Changeling. And it was directed by Clint Eastwood, and Angelina Jolie was in it. Now, I don't know if you guys know, but this was based on a real story, which is nowadays referred to as the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders. Now, the thing about the Wineville Chicken Coop is it's kind of like two stories in one. Because you had kind of the thing that the movie Changeling focused on, and then you kind of had the serial killer angle. These two things are kind of related, but they're also kind of two weird stories in their own right. So basically, the story of Changeling, based on a true story, is based on the story of Christine Collins, and she had a 9-year-old son named Walter. Now, one day, she gave Walter some money, and he was going to go to see a movie. And he never came back. This was March 10th, 1928. The LAPD, obviously, she reported him missing. The LAPD began to look for him. They looked for him for months and months, and they weren't making any progress. Now, around this time in the late 1920s, the LAPD, there had been a lot of scandals. The public were not really happy with them. So they were getting a lot of flack for not being able to find Walter Collins. So about 5 months after the kid went missing, they find this kid in DeKalb, Illinois. Now, at first, the kid says, "My name is Arthur Kent." And the cops are like, "Okay, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah." They start talking to him. But then after a while, the kid says, "No, I'm actually Walter Collins." So the cops in Illinois contact the cops in LA and say, "Hey, we found Walter Collins." So Christine Collins, Walter's mother, she is super excited. She's like, "Yay, they found my kid." So she pays to have the kid flown out to LA. And they have, like, the LAPD stage this big, reunion or whatever, to make them look good and stuff like that. Now, the kid shows up at the reunion and she immediately says, "That is not my kid."
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
And here's where it gets weird. The cops basically said to her, "Why don't you take him home and, quote unquote, try him out for a couple of weeks?" Right? That's what they said to her.
Yeah, just try it out. Yeah, he'll grow on you.
Right. And she's like, "This is not my kid." They think like a mother doesn't know what her own kid.
Yeah, well, cops are like, "Yeah, fuck moms. They don't know."
Yeah, whatever.
It's just a kid.
It's just a woman. She doesn't know anything.
It's just a kid.
Yeah. She's like, a kid's a kid. One's as good as the other. They're interchangeable. Now, I have seen pictures of the two kids, and they do kind of look alike, but you can tell it's a different kid. So, she says, "Okay, whatever." So she takes the kid back to her house, but the whole time she's like, "This is not my kid."
Well, it's weird that she took the kid. It gets to just a different time.
Yeah. Well, the whole time, she had the kid at her house for a couple weeks, and that whole time she was actually getting signed statements from relatives and friends and stuff that knew the kid, that signed the thing that said, "This is not Walter Collins." She got his dental records. She got all this other stuff. So then she comes back to the police department with the kid. She says, "This is not my kid." And at this point, the LAPD, what?
Who was that kid?
I'm going to tell you in a minute.
Okay.
At this point, the LAPD, instead of just saying, "Oh, our bad,"
All right.
they say to Christine Collins, "You are delusional and you're trying to make us look bad," and they code 12'd her and put her in a psychiatric hospital.
Damn.
Because they said she had a nervous breakdown.
Damn.
Right? So they put her in a psychiatric hospital.
Damn. Okay.
Now she's in there for a little while. I don't think it was like a super long time, but it was in there. She was in there a few weeks. And in the meantime, they interview the kid and the kid admits, "I'm not Walter Collins."
Damn.
He's like,
"Man, that's a lawsuit there."
Well, yeah, I'll get to that too.
That's a lawsuit there.
So this kid says, "I'm not Walter Collins. I'm actually Arthur Hutchins Jr.
Damn.
He was a runaway.
Okay.
And he had been hitchhiking around the country for a few weeks and stuff like that."
And how old was he?
He was 9, 10.
Damn, a 10-year-old.
He was a runaway, yeah.
Could just hitchhike back in the day.
Yeah.
Damn.
Evidently, he had got the idea to impersonate Walter Collins when one of the people that he was riding with said, "Hey, you look like that missing kid."
Yeah.
And the kid thinks to himself,
Right.
"Hey, that kid's from LA.
Right.
If I pretend I'm that kid, then I can go out to LA and meet my very favorite actor, Tom Mix."
Damn.
Who was in all the cowboy movies and stuff like that back then. So this kid, it was all a ruse so he could get to Hollywood, basically, is what this kid was doing.
Shit. Okay.
And this poor...
Now, where's this kid's parents?
Well, his parents actually came. Well, he'd been having some family problems.
Yeah.
So his stepmother actually came out to California, had to come out to California and pick him up and take him back home. Yeah. So, and the sad thing, I mean, I know the kid's 9 and everything like that, but he really did not seem to give a single shit about the mother. Yeah. About just like, well, she knew that I wasn't her kid, so I got what I wanted. Blah blah blah. Right. I mean, I don't think he got to meet Tom Mix or anything, but he got to go out to LA, right? Okay, so obviously that was not her kid.
Right.
So what really did happen to her kid?
Yeah, right.
And now here is the second most horrible part of the story.
Uh-oh. Oh, man.
Yeah, this is the horrible part of the story. Okay, so later that year, later in 1928, this was in September, there was a woman named Jessie Clark in Canada. And she had grown worried about her brother, Sanford, who was 15. Mm-hmm. Her brother, Sanford, had gone out to California to stay with his uncle, who was named Gordon Northcott. So she goes out there to check on him. Now, while Gordon Northcott is otherwise engaged somewhere else, Sanford, the 15-year-old boy, comes to his sister and says, Gordon has been molesting me and beating me up, and he's also killed some kids. So Jessie, the sister, is like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to Canada. I'm going to contact the consulate. I'm going to contact immigration. Because Gordon Northcott was originally a Canadian, but he had lived in California for quite some time. She's like, I'm going to sort this shit out. So she goes back and contacts the authorities. The authorities raid the home of Gordon Northcott and his mother, which was in Wineville, which is not called that anymore. And him and his mother, Sarah Louise, raised chickens on this farm. Okay, so the investigators, they interviewed Sanford Clark. Sanford Clark told them that his uncle had kidnapped him, was molesting him, had beaten him, and also that Gordon Northcott had made him watch as he killed 2 boys who were brothers, Nelson and Lewis Winslow, a boy that he thought was Walter Collins, and another boy who was Mexican, whose name he didn't know. And he said, now this boy, he had been beheaded and the head was burned. And now this kind of tied in with an unsolved murder that the LAPD knew about because they had found like this little headless 9-year-old kid.
And this weird shit was happening back in 1928.
1928.
Damn.
Yeah. So when investigators raided the Wineville farm, they didn't find any bodies, but they found a whole bunch of bone fragments. Yeah. And they found some axes with hair and human blood on them and stuff like that.
How old are we talking about?
What, the guy that did it?
Yeah.
Gordon Northcott? He was 21 at the time.
So he was a young guy doing this.
And the creepy thing is that his mom kind of helped.
What? His mom knew?
Yes. His mom knew. Now, what Gordon Northcott apparently did was that he would go cruising for little boys and he would, kidnap them in his car and he would bring them back to the chicken coop and molest them. Now, most of the time, he took them home. Sometimes he took them home, evidently. But sometimes he would kill them. They're not really sure how many he killed. Because like I said, they dug all around all the farm and everything like that. They just found bone fragments. And Sanford Clark, the nephew, the kid, he said, well, it was probably more than that. But what he would do was he would go out to the desert and burn the bodies, like in various places. So they don't really know how many people he killed. But like the other creepy thing too, not only was the mom involved, but also Sanford Clark, the 15-year-old kid, he said that the mom and Gordon Northcott had made him participate in the murders because the mom said, oh, well, if we all do it, then none of us can narc on any of the other ones.
Damn.
You know what I mean? So this was some fucked up shit going on.
Yeah.
So
what do you mean by participate? What do they mean by participate in the murders?
Well, now what Sanford Clark said, now he was specifically referring to the murder of Walter Collins.
Right.
Now they didn't find anything belonging to Walter Collins on the farm. They did find some belongings of the 2 brothers that had been kidnapped, so they know that the 2 of them were there. There is some debate over whether Walter Collins was killed, but Sanford Clark said he was one of the kids. Now, he says that they took Walter Collins into the chicken coop and that the mother, Sarah Louise, said that they each had to hit him on the head with the axe, like one time. Like they all had to do it.
Damn.
Right. And then he had to help them get rid of the bodies. So
Some sick people.
Yeah, they were fucked up.
Yeah.
And like I said, when they eventually caught Gordon Northcutt and his mother, and they stood trial. Now, Gordon's mother, Sarah Louise, she admitted to killing Walter Collins. I don't think she admitted the other ones, but she basically said on the stand that she would do anything to protect her son.
Damn.
Right? So she did all this.
How did she kill him?
No, well, that was the one I just described.
Oh, okay. Hit him on the head with the axe. Okay.
Yeah, right. So, Sarah Louise said that she had actually dealt Walter Collins the death blow and then that she had buried him next to the chicken coop. So she confessed to that. Now, she got life in prison. They didn't give her a death sentence because she was a woman. Gordon Northcutt, the main sicko, he was 23 when he stood trial. It was January 1929. Now, he was one of those people that he had a bunch of defense attorneys, but then he fired all of them. He said, I can defend myself. Right. So how did that go? Not too well, obviously. He did admit that he had molested young boys. He said it was because he loved them. The Michael Jackson defense.
Oh. Got him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, his mom testified for him. And then all this, like, fucked up family shit came out. His mother said, oh, I'm actually his grandmother because his real mother is his sister or something. Like, there was some kind of incest going on with his dad and, like, I don't know. It was, like, some kind of fucked up shit like that. I don't know if that's true, but that's what she said. And there was all kind of rape going on with this family and everything. So they were all messed up. Sarah Louise wasn't really considered a reliable witness because she would basically say anything. Now, Gordon Northcutt, he went on trial not for the murder of Walter Collins, but he went on trial for the two brothers and for the unidentified headless boy. And he was sent to prison. He was sentenced to death. And he was hanged in 1930. Yeah. And the stigma about the crime was so bad that the town of Wineville actually changed their name later on because they didn't want to be associated. They changed it to Miraloma. So but the house is still there. There's someone still lives in it and stuff like that. One of the saddest things is that Christine Collins, Walter Collins' mother, she refused to believe that her son was dead. I mean, she kind of knew, but she kind of held out hope.
They never did find the body.
No, they didn't find his body. So it's possible he could have still been alive because some people that Gordon Northcutt, evidently some boys that he kidnapped and molested did get away or he let them go.
Now, if the kid had lived, he would have showed up.
That's what I figured. Yeah. But she didn't want to really know. And the sad thing, too, was that Gordon Northcutt, before he was executed, he sent Christine Collins a telegram and he said, if you come and visit me before my execution, I'll tell you the truth. Like, I'll tell you what happened and stuff like that. So she did. And then when she got there, he's like, oh, I'm innocent. I don't know anything about it. And that's all he would say. Right. And I'm like, what a shithead. Right. So she never knew. She never knew what happened to him. I mean, I'm sure that Walter Collins was probably one of the victims of this fucking, But the fact that he would never give her that satisfaction that she would know. Yeah. So she really went to her grave thinking maybe he's still alive. Yeah,
he was going to say something, then he changed his mind.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, he sounds like a real fucking piece of work. Yeah. I'm just saying. And it makes me so sad that he did that. Like, it's his last fucking act on her. That he just decided he was going to fuck with her and shit like that.
You know what's funny is that you mentioned Michael Jackson. Yeah. I always thought that Michael Jackson did that shit. That he did that. But you know what? I saw a little program that a guy put together that there's a possibility that he got set up.
You think?
Maybe we ought to do a show about it one of these days.
Maybe. And
look into it. There was a guy that brought up some pretty cool ideas that it might have been a setup because some of the people that first accused him evidently couldn't be trusted because they had a background in extorting people, something like that. I have to go back and look at it again.
Yeah, it's possible.
And in the media, it said that the kid identified certain things about Michael Jackson, but if you actually look at the details, he didn't make the identification. There's all kinds of little details that maybe that the accusation caused Michael Jackson to go deeper into his little psychosis, and he killed himself through drugs, basically.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible.
That it had something to do with money. Yeah. Yeah, it was a conspiracy to shake down a bunch of money out of him. And record companies wanting the Beatles catalog back and that kind of crap.
That's the thing. It's like I'm not usually one to believe in like conspiracy theories, but something like that.
There's a conspiracy theory about that.
It could.
If people,
maybe
if people listen and want to hear a show like that, you can put it in the comment section. I can't remember all the details. This is just off the top of my head, but I remember hearing it and going, you know what? That sounds kind of plausible. But I don't know. I wasn't there. You know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know. I kind of lean toward the fact that probably he did some of that shit. You know, but like you said, yeah, it's possible that some people could have started accusing him, and then it just made him crazier. And shout out. Okay. So like I said, 2008, Clint Eastwood made a movie called Changeling that was about the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders. I saw it a long time ago, and I remember it being good. I don't remember how much of the murders they went into, because I remember it mostly focused on Christine Collins and like her kind of struggle against people just trying to fob this kid off on her, which that kills me. That's like the murder part is horrible and stuff, but can you imagine? You imagine like having this kid brought you, like your kid is missing and
here's
you're
your kid.
Yeah, they're like, here's your kid. That's not my kid. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you'd know your kid, for fuck's sake. Yeah. That would be like if I got kidnapped and somebody said, hey, we found her. We found
Jenny. Here she is. That's not Jenny.
And then they'd be like, no, take her home. Try her out.
Yeah. That's fun.
It's totally her. You're just trying to make us look bad. But yeah, that was the whole kind of, and they slammed her in the psychiatric ward because you could do that back then. Yeah. If someone was just saying stuff you didn't like, they could just put you in the psychiatric hospital. Yeah. Can't do that anymore. Well, I guess you kind of can. So anyway, that'll do it for this special edition, True Crime Twofer. That's my birthday edition, and also the Faceless Villain is done edition. Yeah. The book will be up soon. So as always, if you like the show, then remember to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, share with your friends.
Don't forget about blog.
Don't forget about Patreon.
Go to our Patreon page and become a patron and get all kinds of neat extra stuff. Also on the blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, there is also a little link there to PayPal. If you would rather just give a one-time donation rather than a monthly donation, you can do that.
Got some cool shirts.
Also, go to Zazzle.com/13o'clock and check out our t-shirts. We still have a bunch of those available. And that'll do it for this episode. Bye. You don't need to lift a finger of your hand because it's
gossip and complaints in the Rosegarden funeral